Welcome to the Landlady Boss podcast. I'm here with my sister and co-host Rachel. Hello, Rachel. How are you doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like it's been a couple weeks. We have been traveling and graduation things and just so much going on. I've had house guests. You were traveling with guests that you had all over Europe, it seemed like. So it's so fun to get back in the recording studio and do our 50th episode. Woo!
I'm so
I can't
excited.
believe it. I can't believe we're
I
at
know.
50. That's
I
amazing.
know. It's huge. It's really, really big. Congratulations, Marie.
I know, and thank you to all of our listeners who have made this possible. It's been a little over 1 year since we started this podcast, and it's been a wonderful journey. I've loved creating content with my sister and talking about experiences, and hopefully it's been helpful for all of you to learn and to collaborate, and hopefully we make your landlading a little easier since it can be so overwhelming and busy. So that's our goal, to make
That is.
your life a little easier, and I hope it does. So, but I'm excited. Our topic today, since we are at our 50th episode, we thought we should do something with 50. So today we're talking about how to retire with your rental properties and travel the world before you're 50 or by the time
That's
you're
right.
50.
A lot of people have talked to me, Marie, about how to live in Europe or abroad, and how would you do that? And one of the really great ways you could do it is if you're already a landlady boss, by increasing some of your rentals. If you have a certain amount of money, you can show that you have residual income. Some countries it's 800, some is 2,500, and you just show that you have that amount of money coming in every month, and then you can retire in that country, and they'll give you a retiree visa. So that's another fun way that you can live abroad, and your rentals can pay for it.
That's amazing. I know. And so that brings up the question, how many rentals do I need to quit my job and travel? And I'm sure if you own rental properties, this question has entered your brain. If not, well, I'm so glad that we can be the first to help you to think about this, because for a lot of us, that is the end goal, I think, to have the freedom and flexibility, as we have talked about over the last year in this podcast, to have the freedom to travel, to be able to spend time with family, to take on your hobby, passion projects, whatever that is for you. But one amazing part of rental properties is that if you have enough of them, it can replace your income. So the question is,
Right.
how many does that take?
Right, that's a good question. So I think that always depends on what you spend, and so we'll
Right.
we'll get into that. But first of all, it's figuring out what your lifestyle is going to look like. So let's say you want to retire by 50. Are you wanting to full-time travel, part-time travel? Looking at your expenses, how much your mortgage is, or rent, how much are your utilities, and putting that all together. So once you know your expenses, then you can go from there. A budget traveler who wants to just go per month could be 2,500 per month. If you want to be comfortable, about 4,000. On a luxury, it'd be about 6,000 a month. And then you multiply that by 12, and that will give you your annual cash flow needs for traveling. So that
Now,
gives you a start.
obviously, it depends. It depends what country you go to, of course. Every country
Absolutely.
is so different. Some are way more expensive, some are dirt cheap. So, obviously that plays into the calculation. But what Rachel's saying is, yeah, you kind of figure out what your expenses will be, and then
Hmm.
you calculate them by 12. And so you have how much cash flow you're going to need from your rentals to do that. Now, I
Right.
guess we should bring up the topic, why is quitting your job and traveling by 50 even a worthwhile goal? I know for me, I remember being on a trip, and we were in Pompeii, and we were walking over all of the ruins and seeing
Hmm.
all of these amazing, amazing architectural details of this old city, right? That
Right.
was covered in lava, and you have all of these old ruins that they've uncovered. And I
Right.
remember seeing a lot of retired people there, right? And they're
Yes.
so excited. They finally, their dream, they're
Hmm.
making it to this amazing location, this country. They're going to Italy. They're seeing all these sites. And
Right.
so many, I remember seeing a few in particular that could barely walk. They have
Right.
the walkers, and they're trying to get over these cobblestones and these uneven rocks and
Hmm.
stones, and they're taking breaks, and they're exhausted. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't want to wait. I do not
Right.
want to wait at all to see the world or to start seeing all of these amazing things that the world has to offer. And I know we've talked before about, our father passing away at 69. And I remember thinking then too, like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to
Right.
see, okay, I'm going to retire at 65 and then I'm going to start doing things that I want to do. And so that got
Right.
all of the the wheels turning on how
Right.
could I accomplish this to see the world earlier. And
Right.
Rachel, I think you went
Yeah.
probably through a similar mind shift.
Yeah, 3 days ago, we were at the Matterhorn. Just it's the most incredible views in Switzerland. And we brought our 83-year-old, my mother-in-law, my husband's mother, and we were traveling around and we went to go hike up to the lake that the Matterhorn is reflecting down into this lake. And she needed to
Wow.
stay back, right? So she gets to enjoy the views and she took the gondola and went up and got to see the views and take pictures. And then she just stayed back and we went and hiked. So I think part of the question is if you want to see the world and experience it, do you want to be able to have the energy to go hike and go see the places, or do you want to, by that point, be able to enjoy the view and then take it more relaxed? I was able to ride a go-kart down the mountain. It was so much fun, and I saw these marmots running across the road and stopped and took pictures of these cute little marmots. Anyway,
What are marmots? I don't even know what
it's
a marmot is.
it was like a beaver and a weasel kind of had a baby. Like it's that kind. It's kind of like a beaver if a beaver was not in the water and the tail's not quite as flat, but they have buck teeth and yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
a marmot. Anyway, so we saw 5 of them. We went out and they just kept popping up and then running. And I mean, they're big. They're probably 2.5 feet long. Anyway, so they are not tiny. It was amazing to see them, but I just think of all of the things that I just experienced, and I want to do that when I still have the energy to want to go, bungee jumping or do some adventurous things, or
Mm-hmm.
just be able to handle the heat. You're traveling around and traveling strenuous. So we're talking about doing it by 50 because you can do it at 65 and you will have your Social Security income, hopefully, and you will have some other passive income that you can use maybe to qualify for being able to go retire in these countries. But let's say that you want to go to Europe when you still have the energy to go do your hikes. Well, that's where rentals come in. How much do you make in your rentals in order to kind of count how many rentals you'd need?
Right. And also, I mean, I know very spry 75, 80-year-olds, and I
Oh,
am not
absolutely.
putting them down. And I think it's
Yep.
wonderful that people travel up until, they can't
Yeah.
anymore. But we're just saying, wouldn't it be amazing to start it earlier? I think
Yeah.
we all would love that.
If we
So that's
can.
why
Yeah.
rentals is the way for a lot of people to be able to do that, to have that
Right.
passive. So yeah, how many rentals does that take? You could look at your rental income. Every location in the country, rents are different everywhere. So this is going to be very individualized, but you could generalize. You could look at the rentals you have and say, they bring in, say, $300 a month cash flow, or $600 a month, or $1,000,
Hmm.
whatever it is in your
Hmm.
area. And obviously you've already adjusted for maintenance expenses, and if you have to pay people to manage it while you're gone, or all of these other expenses that go
Hmm.
with it. But if you can calculate that all out, and then you can see, okay, I make on average $500 a month with my rentals, and I've done some research on these different countries. And as you mentioned, was it Spain, Rachel, that you have to have $2,500 a month, 2,400?
Yeah, 2,400, and Greece is less than that. So there are countries that if you can show how much you make from your rentals, then you can. I mean, and you can use Social Security to do this too. You can use your 401k that you have to take out money each month. So you can use these other places to qualify. You can't work once you're in those countries. And so that's why you need to have established your income already and then get this visa. It's called a pensioner visa.
Right. And so, for instance, Spain, okay, if you know that your rentals on average have $500 a month, you'd be like, okay, I need 5 rentals. Now, that might be cutting it pretty close because, what if one's vacant, or what if you have issues with one and you need to put a lot of money? You want to definitely have a
Mhm.
buffer there. But just for
Right.
easy math, that's a good way to get started. And then,
Mhm.
if you're like, I don't have that much money coming in. You can also look at a lot of other countries that, Thailand or Asia itself is just incredibly inexpensive for people from the United
Vietnam.
States to go to. Vietnam was very inexpensive. I've been in Ecuador, I've been in Mexico, I've been in Nicaragua, obviously. Those are very affordable countries
Mhm.
for people from the United States to go to. So
Bulgaria.
you can
My
shop
rent is
around Bulgaria.
$500 a month. I know Bulgaria is
Yes.
very cheap. Yeah, it's
Like
very
it's
good.
amazing. So yeah, you can come up with whatever that number is, and then
Yeah.
you go, okay, I need 8 rentals, I need 10 rentals to get to
Hmm.
that point, and then have that goal, have that
Right.
why, have that reason, and work towards it because I guarantee you will never regret taking time to do those
Hmm.
things that are important to you. You will definitely regret not doing those things earlier, and it could be through disease
Hmm.
or accident or death or all sorts of reasons that prevent you later on in life to do the things that you only
Right.
wish you had done earlier. So we are trying to
Yeah.
hopefully light that inspiration and fire in you to help you not have any regrets at all.
And a lot of these countries that we're mentioning do have quite good health care, inexpensive health care. I know we just
Mm-hmm.
went to the dentist, and one of my kids needs to have like oral surgery done, and we had priced it out in the States, and it was 7,000, and here it's going to be 1,500. So you can
Mm-hmm.
just imagine how much further your dollar will go when you do need medical procedures. So you do need, when you first move, to have international insurance. You have to provide that and show proof in the countries. But after 5 years, you usually get a residency card, and then after 10, you can, in some of these, get citizenship. So, and then you have free um, insurance in the countries. So there's just a lot of
Right.
interesting things about this. So let's just say you got your 10 rentals. They're each cashing $400. I mean, you just kind of keep these numbers round, and so now you have $4,000 a month, and you are netting that, but you have US bills. And this is when you have, like, let's say you have a mortgage. Well, that's going to take a lot of your travel money away. So one thing we did was we rented out our house. We found a really good tenant, and they paid the mortgage, they paid the utilities. If you have HOA, you put that all in your lease, and then they're making your payments so that now you just took that expense out of your budget that you don't have to meet anymore. But they're still giving you equity. They're paying your equity, increasing your equity in your home. So it's actually a good win.
Yeah, and then you don't have those bills that you have to pay in the
Yeah.
US. So that's a great way. So
Hmm.
yeah, you talked about getting a long-term tenant. A lot of people
Hmm.
also will put their home on Airbnb or VRBO or one of these short-term vacation rentals, which is a great way, especially if you're going to be coming back and forth and want to have it available and you don't want to have to get rid of all of your furnishings or move it all out of the house. So that's a great way too that people can have the bills maybe paid for or that extra income coming in while they are traveling, yet still be flexible.
A lot of the European visas are 90 days. So another thing you can do is do
Hmm.
a house exchange. You find somebody in Europe that wants to switch you houses for 90 days, and then you go experience that. So those are other ways that you can do it that would also keep your housing down. But anyway, so those are all things that we've talked about, I think, that have come up. But really, if you can create this net income that's just coming in every month, you have now freed yourself to be able to figure out some other dreams that you might want to be doing, that just live a little bit more nomadic life, which is kind of fun. We've enjoyed it.
Yeah, maybe learn different languages or learn how to cook different food from different cultures or participate in mission work in some of these different countries or build schools or volunteer in orphanages. They're just the whole world is out there and the options
Yeah.
are limitless when you really put your mind to it and find what interests you. I know my
Hmm.
husband and I we do talk a lot about doing, medical work, mission work, or nutrition stuff because I'm a dietetics major and that's something
Hmm.
that interests me, like going to, remote countries in Africa and teaching them like nutrition and hygiene and, he's
Hmm.
a physician so he can help with medical questions and help with their sicknesses. So I mean that's something that's a dream of ours that we hope to do
Yeah.
someday too and rental properties is definitely going to help us get there. Something also, though, I mentioned before, you have to factor in those maintenance and repairs. I would not do this without a nest egg, a buffer, an account that has sufficient amount in there. And that amount varies depending on how many rentals you have. Obviously, the more rentals you have, you want to have a bigger amount to cover any emergency roof or
Mhm.
HVAC issues or a water heater needs done. So, making sure that whatever that number is that you're comfortable with. I'm about $5,000 of property is how I like to have my account set up. And obviously, if you have one or two properties, that may not be enough of a buffer because, only one or two if something goes out. But if you have quite a few properties and you have 5,000 per property, all of a sudden, this could be $50,000, $75,000 in an account that is
Mhm.
not being touched, and that can handle most
A roof
emergencies
or
that
two.
would
Yeah.
crop up. Yeah, a roof or two,
Yeah.
or even a really bad month if you have a roof and a furnace, like it could handle a lot
Yeah.
of things. And so I
Hmm.
definitely have a level that I feel comfortable with. And if I get below
Hmm.
that, I'm just a little anxious or nervous. So have that buffer for the maintenance and repairs, property
Hmm.
management. If you're going to have to pay, even if you're managing from afar, which we do all the time, both of us, but you may have to pay someone to be your boots
Hmm.
on the ground or pay out a little bit more to have other people doing some of the things that you would have
Hmm.
normally done. And then of course there's vacancy and
Right.
CapEx things that you have to put in, like we said, roof and replacing things and taxes and insurance. So, make sure you have all of those things factored in, of course, before you start flying to
Right.
Portugal and living off of the income and going, oh no, I don't have enough to cover all of these other things, because you don't want to get upside down on them and where you have to leave your dream and come back and try to, figure out ways to pay for some of these expenses if you have cut it too close.
And we assume that you've taken our course and that you already understand how to run your business remotely, how to have everything set up really well. I mean, I wouldn't take this step without actually having everything set
Some
up
training.
really well
Yeah.
and some training, right? But okay, so let's talk about what is your number? How many rentals is it for you? What's that net number that you need to be making? And just put that on the wall, put that in somewhere where you're looking at it so that you're like, okay, this is what I'm working towards, so that you're taking action towards like freeing yourself for getting out of the rat race, for creating a life
Mm-hmm.
that you're wanting.
Right. And then some ways to get there quicker than other ways, you could do house hacking early on. We've talked about that, where you are renting out part of your house or you're renting part of someone's house to decrease your expenses.
Hmm.
There's ways to be able to save up quicker to buy more rental properties. Also, doing the Burr method. That's how I scaled. We have an episode that talks about how I scaled from 0 to over 60 doors and using the Burr
Yeah.
method. That's how I did it. Buying them distressed, rehabbing them, renting them, then refinancing it, and then repeating it. And it's
Hmm.
super common in real estate circles. I didn't invent it, but it's been very,
It
very
works.
effective for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. And then, having short-term rentals, looking at those Airbnbs or different ways that you could do that versus long-term rentals, and finding partners, maybe bringing in partners, investors,
Hmm.
so that you could scale quicker. If you're one person doing all of this, it's going to be a lot harder to
Hmm.
build up and scale quickly. And we're wanting you to get there before you're 50. And
Yeah.
so, you're going to have to take some different steps, different measures to get there maybe
Hmm.
than if you were on a slower track to get there. And then, refinancing those properties and using the equity that you had to go and grow and get more properties. So, there's so many ways to get there. And I think
Hmm.
with research and a desire and your why, I think that you can be creative and you can find ways to build up your rental portfolio to get those numbers. Either maybe it's, renting out part of your basement or using
Hmm.
a garage on a rental property and renting the garage out and renting the rental out, or renting out individual rooms in a
Hmm.
single family house that you have so you can get more income. Like, I think if you're really creative and you look at ways and you're trying to get to that whatever number it is, the options
You can
are
do it. Hmm.
limitless. So yes, you can do it with some motivation and some
Yeah.
sacrifice and hard work and creativity.
Right. And why rentals? Well, where else could you have an investment where you have somebody else making the payments that are giving you more equity, paying down the mortgage? You have tax write-offs. I mean, there's very few investments that are as sound as having a good rental property. So we suggest looking into this and looking at some of our other podcasts on how to do that. But trying to do it before 50, you know what? If you're not 50, if you're already 60, 65, it doesn't matter. All of our things are workable for every age, but we do encourage you to take the step to be able to free yourself, to be able to travel, to be able to enjoy the opportunity to have rentals and know how to run them.
Yeah, for sure. Take that step, get started. As we mentioned, geography impacts how much cash you're going to need. So do your
Hmm.
research, find areas of the world that maybe
Yes,
don't take as much money to live in. If you're going to be in
right,
Europe, obviously it's going to be a little more expensive for things.
right,
If you're going to be in South America, you're going to be in Asia, things are going to be a lot cheaper. So, I mean,
right,
just look at, and if you're going to be in Florida, it's going to be even more. So, you're going to need to really
right,
like do your research and find places that you can live so much better on less, and
right.
that's going to really help. And then you can also find side things that you can do, while you're retired per se. I mean, you
Hmm.
can do remote freelancing, consulting or coaching. You can do seasonal work. Maybe you're traveling part of the year, but you're still coming back and working,
Right.
or temp work, or there's just so many options that you can do to supplement that income at the same time while
Hmm.
you're traveling, but it's definitely worth it.
Perfect.
Now, something we want to talk about are mistakes to avoid. You definitely don't want to get over leveraged, where you just have taken out so much financing against your properties that if you get in a sticky situation, you are unable to make those payments. If you have, an emergency come, a
Yeah.
disaster, natural disaster, or a COVID or something, and things are
Hmm.
empty. I mean, you can't prepare for every scenario, but you don't want to be so over leveraged that you don't have the resources to pay for them if you
Right.
have a few months of vacancies sitting there. And then also making sure that you're not just counting on, oh, these properties will appreciate. Some people buy
Yeah.
in low
Overbuy.
cash flowing
Hmm.
markets because their
Hmm.
plan is for it to appreciate, which
Hmm.
that may or may not happen, but you may not be able to travel on that cash flow if you are
Right.
planning on the appreciation and the cash flow just isn't there.
You'd have to wait until the interest
Yeah,
rates
you'd
get
have
better,
to wait.
and then
Yeah.
refinance, and
Or,
then
or
freeze
rental
up
rates
some.
go up
Yeah.
or something, you're going to
Yeah.
have to wait. You
Yeah.
do have to have them
It's a,
cash flowing to live off of them.
yes, you do.
Some other mistakes people make is underestimating property management expense or headaches from afar. Or Rachel can attest to
Yeah.
this, when you are in a different continent, in a different time zone, there are some real
Yes.
hurdles to overcome, like things that
Yes.
just you don't have to
Yes.
deal with when you're in the same state
Right.
as the property. So be aware of that and make sure you have, a network and your team and
Hmm.
people that can handle the issues when they come up. If you are sleeping halfway across the world and have
Right.
no idea what's happening and there's an emergency or something. So you want to definitely plan
Yeah.
all that through. And then having, as we mentioned, the reserves, making sure that you
Hmm.
have sufficient reserves available, and then exit plan ready.
Right.
So
Right.
those are just going to be little mistakes that sometimes people get
Hmm.
in, and just hopefully by anticipating those, you can have much smoother traveling and less headaches.
Right. I think most people get into property management underestimating the expenses that properties require. Just, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have a lot of new, younger owners that I property manage for, and they get frustrated every time there's an expense. I had to replace a toilet seat. I had to change the locks. Anytime there's an expense, they're like, but they're only 2 or 3 years old. And I said, I understand, but things break down. The fridge breaks and it has to be replaced. And so they're frustrated because they only took the costs of the utility and of the landscape and of the property without any other expenses. And then they just are surprised each time that there's costs, and there just are. Buildings have problems, tenants break things happen, and and there's finger pointing, and you end up paying for a lot of it. It's just there's costs, and so if you don't put that in there, you will always overestimate how much you're going to be taking out of the property as profit and underestimating the expenses. So make sure there's a good buffer. Make sure you've been doing it for a while so you have a really good feel for what that property is going to cost. Older properties do cost more. They do break down faster. They do have things that wear out because they're already, 15 years into a water heater. So there's just costs. And so I would get a really good feel for the property before you leave it and go
Right.
international.
I definitely wouldn't get inspired to do this and say, I'm going to go out and buy 10
I'm
rentals
done.
and then I'm done and then leave. Like, kind of
Yeah.
do this a while first. Make
Right.
sure that you're understanding how this all works and the systems and the things that can go wrong. And then start with that freedom number. Like if you already have rental properties, as we've mentioned, kind of looking at what amount you need. But
Hmm.
I would encourage you to reverse engineer the number that you need, whether it's using an app to track your spending or just looking at receipts or kind of generalizing, looking at your credit card statement, whatever, come up with what your spending habits are or what you
Hmm.
need to live in some of these countries and then work backwards and come up
Right.
with the amount that you're going to need and then figure
Hmm.
out how much you're going to need in rental income coming in. So kind of do that and use, there's spreadsheets, there's rental calculators, there's FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early, podcasts and books and
Yeah.
calculators. I mean, there's so much information out there, but start
Yes.
looking at some of those things, track your numbers, and hopefully that this could become a reality for you because it's so worth doing. It's time that you can
So
never get
worth it.
back, and it's the amazing thing with rentals is that it makes it a possibility.
It does. It does. You can be in a different country and invoice out. You can answer the texts from people, and you're in a mountain or by a beach or swimming or something like that. It doesn't matter because like we're able to communicate all over the world, and so you can too if you are well organized, like Marie said, and if you have it all set up. I mean, but we, I think we we over and over go through some of these podcasts we try to come up with these different thoughts that we've had or problems we've had, and we try to find solutions for you. I think a lot of people have always dreamed of this, have dreamed of being able to travel, have dreamed of being able to have rentals, and they don't think it's a possibility. And yet here we are, we're doing it. And so if you have questions or stories or problems that you want to present to us, I mean, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to answer those. We've kind of gone through all of these things. We've had to hammer out the details of the different time zones of bad Wi-Fi, what to do, how to buy, have a different VPN because banks don't allow you to log in from overseas. I mean, there's like so many things that we've already had to deal with that if you have questions, ask us. And, we'll do a podcast on it because we really have figured this out and we love our lives. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have it any other way.
And maybe you have something to teach us too, because we don't know it all. And I would love to hear any hacks, or if you're already doing this, let us know
Yes.
at landladybosses@gmail.com. Email us. We would love to know any of these hacks or tricks that you do to manage your
Mhm.
properties abroad, or what your goal is. Let us know what your freedom number is, or how many rentals you're working towards. I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
If you'd like to have more resources and look at our templates and our courses and all the things that we've created to help you, head over to landladyboss.com and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at LandladyBoss. Hopefully this has been helpful for you and it starts the conversation and the dialogue of helping you to be free and living abroad and traveling by 50. And remember, no one can manage your property as well as you.